for the VOD. Welcome to Dicentra. At least I think I'm saying that name correctly. What happened? Oh, my display capture just stopped for a sec. That was weird. Dicentra is a visual novel where you play as a young boy named Basil, lost in a forest of watchful trees and unfriendly guides. In a harsh storm, his only sanctuary is a seemingly abandoned mansion. He doesn't know if anyone or anything currently haunts these walls, but there is one thing he can conclude. He shouldn't have come here. So let's go ahead and just dive. Why you do this? You know what, hold up. The display capture keeps breaking. Let me do the game capture. There we go. This game contains content with blood, death, violence, unhealthy relationships between characters, and horrific imagery that players may find uncomfortable or disturbing. Player discretion is advised, and please play responsibly. Take care of yourself. I do like that. I do like when a game has a content warning like that. Let me also go ahead and turn off capture cursor. I drag myself through the rain. It blurs my vision, forcing me to feel my way through the forest, wind crushing against me from all sides. Prayer is my only form of navigation, but I think the blood running through my veins prevents me from landing in God's graces. I love the art style. I fumble over the tangle of roots and slip over wet moss. My bones instantly shudder from the cold shock running through my nails as I grab onto a nearby rock. A pathetic whine escapes my throat. My grandmother would have a ball if she could see me now. I can hear her snide remark already. See what happens when you don't listen to me? As if I wouldn't survive long enough to hear the real deal. I sniffle in frustration and try to shake the feeling away with the rain dripping down my face. She's always right, of course. For a moment, my defiance has given me everything I wanted. Lost in thought, I lost control of my limbs. I'm not used to using them all at once, and it's hard enough to throw me back into the slick earth. Now I really want to cry. The storm is harsh. A thick canopy of trees above me does little to shield me from its rage. They passively turn their leaves away, instead tempting me to scream my grandmother's harshest curses at them. Am I losing it? Matthias, thank you for the bit. I assume that was meant to be 10. I shakily lift myself from the ground, snorting weakly into a puddle. For the middle of summer, it sure is pouring hard. The rain feels like shards of ice against my skin. I watch it distort the reflection in the puddle with ripples. In the brief moments where the reflection almost settles, I see piercing yellow eyes, dark fur, and wilted ears sleek and clinging to the small, vulnerable form of a wolf pup. The voice of my grandmother hisses in my mind. What have you done, Basil? Basil? I need to get back home. I tear away from the puddle and trek on. Oh! It said young boy. Are we actually playing as a wolf cub? Wolf pup? Please, something lead me back home. Something, anything. Maybe that's a risky thing to ask of this forest, though. Because something answers. And that would be the answer! It's so faint that I question if it's even real. A howl cuts through the wind, or perhaps it's the wind that shrinks away from the sound that ambles through. Fighting my way through the storm has exhausted my body. The frontal lobe of my brain begins to neglect its responsibility to remember what reason is. All my instincts scream to ignore it, but my heart, a stupidly curious thing, makes me take a step forward. My fuzzy ears... Ah, it's a little wolf pup! Okay, my fuzzy ears pick up on the heavy sounds of my heart pounding. I try to convince myself it's because of fear. I need to focus on where the howling's coming from. As I get closer to the sound, it begins to resemble crying. The storm has also started to retract its claws. Was it the forest showing mercy, or has it submitted to something more formidable? I lived in the woods my whole life. I should know better than anyone to never get too comfortable. A red light perforates the dark atmosphere. I swallow harshly. There's a mansion in the middle of the woods. Ooh, God, that looks so cool. From a distance, it would look abandoned, if not for the hazy red light coming from the rooftop. I squint. Is that a greenhouse? A shadowy figure moves quickly behind its clear walls, startling me. I duck into the tall and neglected grass that grows in the mansion's yard. After a short while, I peek through the blades. The shadow is gone. Did I imagine it? I release a nervous sigh and observe the grounds for any sign of life or death. It was a bad idea to come here. A terrible one, even. I can't stay here. I retreat back to the shadows of the forest, keeping the mansion in my line of sight. The moment I feel okay, thank you for that. Thank you, Clumpy. The moment I feel bold enough to turn my back against it, a powerful gale slams into me. I tumble back hard, skidding across the ground into the tall grass with a cry. It takes me a moment to recover from my swirling vision. I let out a whimper as pain blooms over my arm. It's too dark to see clearly, but it swells up when I try to move. Oh, no, 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 no. I grit my teeth and get back to my feet, keeping my weight off my arm as I make for the forest again. Again, I am denied entrance by a mysterious force. Panic starts to sweep through my bones. I almost wish I could go back to feeling hopeless. I stare at the trees as though they'll suddenly start playing nice, but beings as ancient as them do not bend to anyone's will but their own. The wind gives one more shove. It insists I move forward. I bare my adolescent fangs at it to smother the hurt. I know now that my choices were nothing but illusions. I face the mansion once again. It's clear that something or someone from inside is inviting me in. With no other choice, I creep along the worn brick walls of the mansion and try to find a way in. Oh, go to a window, cellar door, or go somewhere else. Ooh, does this have actually multiple endings? Let's go to a window. That seems like the most reasonable thing to do. I spy a broken window and see a gauzy white curtain thrashing against the glass from the intruding storm. Sadly, it's far too high for me to climb, and there's no way I can jump in this state. All right, let's go to the cellar door. I find a door to a cellar. The wood looks rotten, but it doesn't give when I put my weight on it. It's also too heavy to open without thumbs. Go somewhere else. A faint knocking grabs my attention. I pad back to the mansion. My saving grace comes in the form of a door left slightly ajar. Aha! I nudge my nose into the tight gap, and relief washes over me when it parts. Then... Ooh. That's a good creak. Like me a good creak. Def a wolf with no thumbs. Yeah, definitely. God, the art is so pretty. An ear-piercing screech echoes through the mansion as the hinges begin to shift. From the looks of it, they haven't moved for a long time. The feeling of ice floods my veins. I stay frozen in the doorway. If this mansion is inhabited, there's no way I didn't just announce my entrance. Fear takes over again. My back paw intuitively steps back so I can attempt to run as far away from this place as I can. Oh. The sound of thunder explodes behind me. I feel my body take on a life of its own as I throw myself into the mansion against my will. The door slams on my way in. I breathe slowly. When I come to my senses, I'm in a kitchen. Let me check the preferences really quick. I'm going to turn the music volume down a little bit. There we go. So that way the more ambient sounds can be heard. Did he maybe used to have thumbs? Maybe? Possibly? Oh, what if he was a kid transformed by whatever this forest deity is? It's dark inside the house. The only source of light comes from the windows above the counters. Everything beyond its reach is a void. I see a kitchen table and crawl towards it, scratching my nails along the musty wood flooring in a rush to get beneath it. I stay under the table as my breathing starts returning to a normal pace. My eyes are wide, my ears are perked up on the lookout for anything that could be a threat. The only sounds I pick up are the heavy drums of rain from outside and the occasional creak of the mansion walls breathing in the night air. When I'm confident that there's no sign of life in this manor, I crawl back into the open and immediately shake off as much rain as I can. I just heard whining. I don't know if that was in the game or not. I let myself celebrate the minor luxury of finally escaping the maws of the weather, but I don't let my nerves calm down just yet. As soon as my eyes adjust to the dark, I take the time to study my surroundings more. I notice a hearth that lacks any recent maintenance. Dishes crowd the counter, and a thick layer of dust forces me to smother a sneeze. Mr. Boxbones, how you doing? Might be both. It could be. This place hasn't been occupied in a long time. Surely I can allow myself to breathe just a little bit easier in this space, at least until the storm wanes. I bring in a deep inhale, being careful not to get any dust, and tread cautiously. As I stalk further in, I hold my breath at every corner, carefully looking in all directions for danger. The rest of the mansion is as devoid of life as the kitchen. Most of the rooms here have closed doors. The one that I could see The ones I could see in were graciously empty, sans the derelict furnishings within. Barely anything is in decent shape. I couldn't guess how long it's been since a human lived in this manner, but based on the scratched hardwood floors and the broken but intricate-looking side table nestled in the dark corner, I have the impression that this place was neglected even while it was occupied. My nails tap on the floor as I limp into the hallway, my mind settling from all the adrenaline. The ache in my front leg starts to swell, and the heat from my body intensifies the pain. What's the name of the game? Dicentra, Dicentra. Paintings line the walls from end to end, but it's hard to see them in the dark. Through glimpses of light, I could make out some faded landscapes, a few mountains, some castles, and a couple of portraits. One portrait in particular catches my eye. I stop in front of it. I stare at the portrait, foolishly thinking that it's staring right back. Surely it's just a slight fever settling in and making me come up with silly things. I don't think I've lost my mind just yet, though. As I observe the side profile of a pale woman, I notice that she's eerily the most realistic painting I've seen so far. There we go. When she turns her head to look down at my tiny form, every hair on my body goes stiff. Her lovely features, captured in oil, begin to melt off as she steps out from the painting. Smooth ivory skin shrivels to a deathly pallor. Her elaborate gown, clinging to her sharp shoulders, begins to rot as her torso parts open like a blooming rose, revealing decaying bone and organs that run down her skirt like horrific decor. "Oh, hey, lady!" I immediately start running away as fast as I possibly can. As I scramble to get away on my hurt leg, I hear something that might be worse than a ghost. The woody and spicy scent of incense fills the humid air, creating a hazy purple fog. The sound of chains moving in a controlled rhythm rattles the marrow in my bones. Footsteps follow shortly after, growing louder alongside them, the clinking chains. It's coming from the staircase. My breath... Yeah, it is behind me. My breath quickens. I slide to a halt and backtrack away from the sounds. I look behind me to see the glowing apparition of the woman's hunched over form stumbling towards me, dragging a trail of gore with a wet squelch. Hide! I need to hide! But where? My eyes dart across every inch of the hallway, desperately searching for a small sanctuary. The footsteps are right behind me. The ghost is right in front of me. This hallway now feels like a tomb. All of the doors are firmly shut. I press against a wall, my heart skipping a beat when I notice a faint tapping sound coming from behind me. I turn around and witness the outline of a door revealing itself. I waste no time shoving my muzzle between the crack to wrench it open. As soon as I pry the door open, I hurl myself through. Yeah, hi. As soon as I pry the door open, I hurl myself through, back into the darkness. I walk backwards away from the door, keeping my eyes on it, so I'm focused on the door. I'm so focused on the door that I bump into something cold and almost trip over it. I look up and see a dark iron staircase curling up to a high ceiling. A hatch near the top is open, letting the rain from outside drip down the cold metal. God, that's cool. I hear footsteps once again, this time much louder. I don't dare breathe or move. Oh God, hi! There you are. A voice startles me into moving. No way I was about to stick around to find out what fate awaits me. Every fiber of my being is ringing with danger as I climb the stairs with only adrenaline instructing my limbs. I drag myself up the iron steps until I'm bursting onto the roof and back into the storm. I'm not thinking anymore. I see the greenhouse I had spotted earlier and sprint towards it as fast as I can. I search for a small space to crawl into, tripping over a mess of vines along the way. Thunder and lightning roar above me. A bright flash of white blinds me. I can feel my claws scratch against the wet tiles. A door slams shut in the distance, causing a rippling effect in the walls and reaching to the rooftop. When the rippling stops, everything goes quiet. The energy of the manor shifts completely. A jolt of lightning from the storm makes my fur stand. It charges the air and saturates it with the smell of ozone. I shake the rain from my face. The whole world has fallen silent, except for the sound of a chilling drip. Basil. I freeze. My eyes carefully follow the coil of dead roots on the gray floor of the greenhouse. Drip. I follow its trail all the way to the blood dripping onto the dirty tiles and the pale feet beside it. Drip. My eyes climb the mysterious figure. I don't think I'll ever forget the sight before me as short as I live. Drip. Lightning flashes brightly around the tall windows, looming rose bushes creep along them, white roses speckled across the dark leaves like stars in the night sky. The bright flowers began to bleed red over my very eyes. The rose bush's crimson-soaked center, At the rosebush's crimson-soaked center, a small girl stands with her back toward me. Blood drips from tiny bite marks all over her hand. A red flower bulb is crushed between her delicate fingers. Oh, hey! Yeah, no, okay, we are in fact a wolf pup. Instead of a strong floral scent, the smell of burning paper and wilting lilacs floods my senses. A whine unwillingly crawls up my throat and cuts through the silence. Time resumes once again. The girl turns, her gaze piercing right through me. The bulb drops from her hand. She doesn't say a word. Her attention is mine, against my own will. Black dots begin to appear in the corners of my vision. The last thing I saw was her walking towards me, before everything faded to dark. My fever is brutal throughout the night. I slip in and out of consciousness to flames beneath my skin and an ache I'd rather sleep off than face. I try to let my body go back to sleep, but strong hands force my jaws open and shove something down my throat. The intrusion makes me violently resist, but I'm far too weak to fend the intruder away. The dark takes me into its arms once again. I wake to the tang of rusty metal and humid air. The unfamiliar sensation makes my eyes snap open. Beyond the small cage that holds me, it's dark and damp. I clench my jaw as I examine my surroundings. Soon my eyes fixate on the ghost staring at me from outside my metal prison. Oh, hi. You're not as unpleasant as the other one. I yelp and throw my body backwards, hitting the back of the cage. I expect the bite of hard metal on my back, but something smooth bends around my shape instead. It hisses at me in response. I don't think it liked that very much. My claws scrape the cold floor of the cage as I spin. The bars behind me morph into slithering vipers in defensive stances, each one baring their fangs in anger. Careful. Their venom will make the blood in your body solidify in seconds. That wouldn't be a very pleasant way to die. I look at the ghost in horror. I'm breathing so quickly that I'm convinced I'll die from lack of oxygen, or so I think. The vipers settle back into the metal bars. Okay! Thank you for that, Prisma. And I make myself small. I don't want to risk testing their patience again. The ghost is not a ghost, but a girl. Her hair looks like ink that's been violently knocked over and spilled onto the floor. It melts into the dark surroundings, contrasting her gray and sickly-looking skin. Her expression is blank. I see her hands tightly clutching her white gown. Do you bite? Do you? I want to ask. I reveal my teeth through a snarl and watch as she shows hers with a small smile. The fur along my spine stands up. She starts to move and I flinch. The girl crawls towards the cage and I curl my nails. She reaches for me, a pale hand passing between the bars without resistance. It freezes right in front of my snout. Is she checking to see if I would really bite? Has she no fear, offering her hand so fearlessly in the presence of a beast? I may only be a pup, but the sheer force of my jaws can pierce right through her palm. I guess I repel from... I don't want to bite her. She doesn't seem mean. I pull my face away from her hand and see her startle from my peripheral vision. She pulls her hand back and holds it against her collar. My eyes lock with hers as she stares at me with her lips pressed together. It'll be hard for me to protect you if you're too scaredy cat to do as I say. My eyes snap back to the girl. I watch as she stands up and wipes her hand on her dress, not showing a single care about how dirty it's become. If you want to survive, you'll have to listen to my instructions, okay, doggy? She tilts her head like she expects me to respond. Don't try to be too brave. If you're smart, you'll stay careful. The others had too much fight in them. It made them foolish. My heart pounds in my chest from her words alone. She gives me another haunting smile. When your arm is better, I'll take you for a walk before he gets back. God, it was weird. It looked like she smiled for a sec. Is this what she sounds like when she's excited? It's unsettling. She suddenly moves close to the cage again. I jump and back away just enough where I don't risk getting into trouble with the vipers again. The scent of burning parchment and wilting lilacs returns. The girl's hair falls off her shoulders. I expected ink to trickle down and dye her dress black. Oh, she did? Oh, God. My name is Dove. Horrible to meet you, Dove. I like the dog. I spend the night nursing the dregs of my fever. When I'd first woken up, I didn't take notice of how much had already been soothed. But now, vague memories of violating hands surface in my thoughts. Did the girl, Dove, give me some kind of medicine during the height of my fever? My body still feels uncomfortably warm. I rest my head on one arm and glance at the other, at the one that had been hurt earlier. A clean bandage is firmly wrapped around it, not enough to cut off the blood flow, but enough to restrict its movement. Was this also Dove's handiwork? I sigh softly through my nose, then close my eyes. Time passes ambiguously in the cage, with nothing to reference. I don't know if it's been mere hours or days. A bowl of water sits in the corner of my cage. I know from the dryness in my throat that I need to hydrate, but I have yet to muster up the courage to approach the bars that slither and rattle every so often. When I'm desperate enough to finally quench my thirst, the bars relievingly keep their metal form. Feeling better now, I curl into a ball and my tail cradles my face. I want to go home. Exhaustion catches up to me once again. I fall asleep on crusty metal and wake up on dusty wood. The sound of wind chimes alert me to consciousness. My eyes snap open and my retinas are immediately burned by the color that floods into them. On the floor in front of me is a kaleidoscope of lights created by the morning sun, a stark contrast to the dark and dreary setting I was previously confined to. Maybe I dreamed it all in a feverish haze? I check on the gauze around my arm. It's still there. A weight around my neck brings me back to focus. A collar is secured around my throat. Attached to it is a long and heavy chain that leads to the leg of a large wardrobe in the corner of the room. The bedroom. I take in my latest cage. There are no longer venomous bars to keep me, but the state of confinement has not changed. My eyes move from the rainbows on the floor to the line of the chain restraining me, then to the rest of the room. I look at the windows and find swirling murals of expressive paintings and various creatures and monsters. The sun behind them illuminates the floor with speckles of color like stained glass window. Past the frame of the window, the drawings continue in nonsensical scrawl. Less art decorates the walls, but shelves with cracked plants, pots, and hanging tangles of vines in their place. Dirty cups and bowls sit forgotten in a dark corner. I briefly note 2 shallow dishes near where I lay. They look like they would be used by a pet. Judging from the surprising lack of grime from under them, it hasn't been long since they were last used. Dusty books and crumpled parchment litter the floorboards. Taking up half the room is a canopied bed. Dark curtains are pulled tightly together, preventing me from seeing inside. The sound of scratching captures my attention. Goodness. I drag my gaze past a pile of books. They're sitting on a raggedy blanket, hunched over, and scribbling in the print of a book is Dove. The background kind of makes me think of the room Momo was making for Peachy, but more muted colors. Yeah, it kind of has the same vibe. A lot of the same detail. She gnaws on her lip and pinches her brow. I can hear her whispering something to herself. No, 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 that won't work. I slowly lift myself from the floor, cringing at the sound of clanking chains following my movement. Dove makes no move acknowledging my presence, so I continue approaching her. When I'm closer to her back, I'm able to get a better look at what she's furiously writing. Scribbles of occult symbols make the words on the pages completely illegible. I swallow a lump in my throat. The collar on my neck feels very heavy right now. Rip. Dove suddenly tears a page from the book. The jarring sound makes me jump, and I slam into a tower of books, sending it toppling onto the floor. Dread weighs heavily on me. I look back at Dove. She's now staring at me with wide eyes. You're awake! I release a small yelp and stare at her dumbfounded. She's brighter? Or maybe it's the luminous light filtering through the bedroom window. Something about it paints her in a rose-tinted lens that makes my wariness waver. That feeling instantly vanishes when she gets up and rushes towards me. I run away as fast as my legs allow, but my air supply is abruptly cut off as I'm thrown off my feet. A sharp howl is pulled from my throat. I look behind me and see that the chain on my collar is pulled taut. I had reached its limit. Then I see Dove standing in the spot I had bolted from. Her gaze creeps along the chain, making its way to my crumpled form. Icy blue eyes stare into mine and I shudder. It feels like she could unravel me through sight alone. She looks like she knows. She looks at me like she knows. Then she perks up, snapping the tension away. Oh, right, you're probably starving. The others were also skittish when they had empty bellies. Her voice trails off as if she's become lost in thought. She starts weaving through the mess of book piles to reach the bedroom door. Wait here. I don't have much of a choice. Dove returns with a bread roll and a bowl. She sets the bowl down a couple of feet in front of me and retreats back to chew on her own food. I tentatively approach it. The bread smells like heaven. I lick my lips on instinct. It must have been ages since I last ate because I watch her tear chunks from it and mark every little crumb falling onto her white dress with yearning. I look down at the bowl she left me. The sight of red fleshy chunks greets me. Raw meat. She gave me a bowl of raw meat. I can't eat this. Well, maybe I could. But the idea of it has nausea coursing through me. I stare at the fresh blood pooling at the bottom of the bowl. Then I glance over at the bread, then back down to the bowl, feeling confounded. My stomach growls. I can feel saliva start to drip down the side of my mouth. I can't do it. Are you gonna let it go to waste? Oh, Jesus! Dove's voice comes from right above me, and fear flutters in my stomach. Okay then. My eyes snap up. Dove reaches for me and I flinch, scattering away. She kneels in front of the bowl and dips her hand into it, crushing a fistful of squishy red meat between her fingers. She brings the raw meat to her mouth. Watch her eat it? Bile rises in my throat as I watch her chew through the raw flesh and swallow it with a sickly gulp. Ugh. She covers her mouth with the back of her hand and gags and looks at me. She smiles at me, her teeth stained in a glistening red. What a horrible taste. A thin stream of blood falls from the corner of her mouth. I suppose you'd like something a little more appetizing? She gags again, then runs out of the room. Yeah, I don't fucking blame you! I hear the sound of her retching from another room. Dove returns with a new bowl with what looks like stew. I inspect it thoroughly, checking for insects or anything inedible. When I surmise that there's nothing of the sort, I dig in greedily. My eyes begin to sting after the first couple of bites. The stew is so bland. It makes me yearn for my grandmother's cooking so badly. From the corner of my eye, I can see Dove watching me like a hawk. Like all it'll take is a single blink for me to disappear. If only I could. As I finish eating the stew, a soft thudding captures my attention. I look back to see my tail wagging against the floor. I feel myself shrink with embarrassment. I immediately cease its movement, but not before Dove takes notice. Looks like your energy has returned. It's a wolf. Raw meat should be... Yeah, definitely not always a wolf. Hello, can I help you? Hi. Your noggin is massive. Her eyes move to my arm. Does it still hurt? I stare at Dove, then hesitantly put my weight down on my wrapped arm. The sharp pain is mostly gone, but a dull ache still remains. If the opportunity for me to run away came, I could probably do it, but not without difficulty. I make a frustrated whine. Dove tilts her head at me, considering my reply. She approaches me again, slowly this time. I hold my breath as she comes close, her hands hovering near the collar around my neck. I'm suddenly hyper-aware of how quiet it is. There's no drum of rain or crack of thunder to be heard from outside. Hope dares to grow inside my racing heart. Will you hurt me if I take it off? I'll answer her. I shake my head slightly. Dove gives me a curious look. Not gonna lie, because I'm not only listening to it. It sounds like a spicy audiobook. He calls it an arm too, not a leg, which is also calling it an arm. So she knows we're human. Definitely. 100% she knows. Her hands hover over for a short moment, then she nods. The weight of the collar lifts off my shoulders. Then I bolt. My swift escape shoves Dove aside. I can barely see her get thrown to the floor as I make for the open bedroom door. Dove makes a panic noise behind me. It fades out in my rush to leave her behind. Then I'm back in the hallway where the horrors began. Oh, she was crying! I need to get back to the kitchen. I sprint to the stairs. Then suddenly I'm skidding to a stop when a wall meets me at the end of the hall instead of the staircase. I stare in confusion. Did I go the wrong way? I look around the hall. I don't remember seeing this many doors. A sinking feeling unravels in my gut. I run down a new hallway. I turn into another. Then another. My exploration of the manor was cut short when I'd first arrived, so maybe I can't remember everything well enough? But I swear, these are not the same halls I walked through before. But I turn into a 15th hallway in this new labyrinth. The sound of something being dragged cuts off my thoughts. I look behind me, fear pulsing in my veins. A ghostly figure walks down the cross-section of another hall. Hi! Long hair protrudes from its head, running down the floor swiftly like straw and hiding most of its long, thin limbs. I watch it disappear around a corner, completely frozen in my spot. Another ghost. I've never seen this corrupted before. I now feel extremely vulnerable, like a beacon standing in the long, open corridor. The tapping noise is next. My heart pounds violently in my chest as I search for the sound. I immediately see another ghost heading straight for me. I yelp and crush myself against a wall as if it'll make me invisible. I don't like that one. I don't like that one. This ghost staggers towards me with bony knees knocking together. A thin veil curtains its upper body, and something that resembles a bird's beak peeks out at its chest. A Makes the dogs play with something. The closer it gets, the better I'm able to make out the detail of its leathery skin and beady, bloodshot eyes that dapple across its face above the rotting beak. Needle-thin arms bend sharply at the elbow and reach back behind the ghost's head. It balances on its elbows and pulls itself forward on them. I make myself paper-thin and shiver when part of its elbow brushes against one of my paws. I start breathing again when it passes quietly, then back away into the intersection of the hallways. Another ghost almost tramples me. Oh, hi! Two ghosts follow one another down the path of the bird-like ghost. One is a cluster of what looks like fungi and twisting fabric that melts into bumpy flesh. A stringy network of mycelium trails behind it. Another creates a sound of glass crunching together with every steady step it takes. Its arms stick out like pieces of wood that lightly swing as it walks, and where its face should be is a void framed by jagged, broken pieces of porcelain skin. I can still make out the raggedy maid uniform that clings to its bloated form. These are all people that died in the manor. I follow the ghosts in a trance. Like a line of schoolchildren, they walk along a well-known path. Normally, when a ghost is corrupted from being trapped in the land of the living, every semblance of their humanity is lost. So where do these ghosts stalk with so much purpose? They navigate the hallways without hesitation, twisting and turning through the route already well worn. Then so painfully easy, I have been led back to the kitchen. I see Dove standing on the kitchen table, delicately twisting an incandescent bulb into the hanging light fixture. Dried black tears stain her cheeks, but her expression betrays no sign of dejection. Another bulb is held loosely in the other hand. This one has been burnt so badly that no light can penetrate its ashy, blackened surface. It took 40 years to develop this type of filament. The ghosts surround her. Oh my god. I watch them reach for her, and I open my jaws to bark out of warning, but I choke on my rising panic. Dove doesn't notice them and continues to screw in the bulb. I read that these bulbs can stay lit for up to 1,200 hours. Claws brush against her skirt, and yet, after less than a week, their legacy of lighting the dark has been snubbed out forever. With one last turn of the wrist, light envelops the room. Something so wonderful. Dove stares into the bulb's light as her fingers caress the glass. Only breaks in a place like this. The ghosts have vanished. Dove gives no hints of awareness for the presence that had just left them. My blood thuds in my ears. Could she not see them? I look at the door that I had used to enter the mansion. I hear Dove dust off her hands and toss the old bulb into a box where it shatters amongst other pieces of glass. She sighs wearily. How long will this cycle continue for? I barely hear her words. Instead, I stare at the wall where the back door should be, and there is no door. I immediately freak out. I run to the wall, ignoring the ache in my arm, and scratch at the old wallpaper, hoping that the door was only hidden behind it. My claws tear through the wood, but as I continue scratching, the outline of the door does not reveal itself. I back away, staring at the shredded decoration and breathing rapidly. It's not there anymore. I turn my head up and see Dove sitting on the kitchen table, swinging her legs. She stares at the wall I had torn up and gives me a blank expression. I explode. My body ignites with fiery rage as I growl and snarl at her. Bark, 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 bark. She frowns and her eyes turn downcast with guilt. I don't know how to get it back. Bark louder, attack her, force her to help. I force her to help. She doesn't seem bad. I don't want to attack her. I look past Dove and see the window. I perk up. The window! We can break it! I pause and take note of how far the window is from the floor. Well, maybe not me. Dove sits on the table looking bored. I take a deep breath. Hold on. Sin, holler up down the hall if you need me to do something with the boys. Dove jumps and her eyes swivel down to me. What? I point my nose at the window, and it takes Dove a second to understand my gesture. She blinks, then turns her head to the window. Her lips frown in confusion. The window? She looks down at me with furrowed brows. What about it? My tail wags behind me. I ignore it and look around for something that'll help her understand what I want. I spot a stool underneath the table, and my ears stand straight up. Dove leans over and watches me drag the stool out with my teeth. I throw my body weight back so I can pull it out until it falls over, then I look at Dove and point my snout at the window again. She hops off the table and picks up the stool. She holds it up, still wearing a befuddled expression. You want me to... She raises an eyebrow at me. Posturing while standing over you. Gotcha. Do you need me to do something about it, Sen? Put it by the window? I huff. Throw it at the window? Yip! I nod and my tail wags quickly. Dove looks at the window hesitantly. She stares at her reflection in the glass. I never tried breaking the windows before. Dove stumbles slightly when I grab the bottom of her dress and lead her to it. When I feel her slightly resist, I look up at Dove's face appears paler than I thought was possible. I see her swallow before she starts moving on her own. She climbs onto the counter with the stool in her hands. It slips slightly in her grip as she wipes her hand on her dress. She raises the stool and my heart starts to quicken. The stool comes down, then stops. I whine in confusion. Dove stares into the window with wide eyes. I follow her line of sight, then see it. A pale hand grips Dove's arm. I look past it and let out a sharp cry. Dove's reflection stares back with blackened eyes and wide, distorted smile that leaks dark bile. I can see Dove's hand tremble, then the reflection speaks. Bad girl, you should know better by now. Ice spreads through my veins. I hear Dove's breath hitch. Then I hear something else. Tiny, wooden footsteps fill the silence. I stay completely still and slowly slide my pupils to see small flutters of movement from the shadows in my peripheral. I hold my breath. The footsteps start to grow louder. I hear Dove hiccup and my eyes slide back up to her in panic. The reflection crushes Dove's wrist. Black webs spread from where they touch. Its beady eyes crinkle as its grin stretches wider, then pulls Dove in close until their foreheads almost touch. Behave, Dove. The reflection barks out a howling laugh, then shoves Dove away from the window. Dove shrieks and flails her arms. I yelp and throw myself under her to soften the fall. She crushes me with her weight, and we fall into a messy heap on the floor. My vision swirls and my whole body rages in agony. The sound of the reflection's laughter fades away, and the wooden feet start to retreat to my relief. When we recover again, Dove stands on shaky legs, and I can see her trying to control the haunted expression she wears. She holds her wrist in, and black veins now fade from where her reflection had touched her. I let out a soft "woo." She got hurt because of me. She stumbles to the table and plants herself back on top of it. I whimper and go back to scratch the door more in desperation. I'm sorry. Enough. I'm tired of seeing you wallow in despair. I reply with an indignant huff. I see Dove puff her cheeks in annoyance. I turn my head away and rest it on my paws. There's no way out. It's better for you to just accept it. My growl rumbles in my throat. Even the front door is gone, so instead of wasting time, you may as well follow me and keep yourself occupied. I wish I could cry. My ears lay flat against my skull. I've landed myself right in the mouth of a carnivorous flower with the sweetness of shelter to lure me in. And I never considered whether it would let me go once I treaded past its sharp teeth. I take a peek at Dove. She doesn't seem to have any problem with being a caged bird. Is she so comfortable living in these conditions that she can't even see how wrong it is? How can anyone possibly live like this? Her patience reaches its end as she slides off the kitchen table. I cry out when she hauls me off the ground, and I bare my fangs at her when her face appears right before mine. My glare doesn't faze her. Follow, Wolf. There's much to do. Like what? We return to the labyrinth of the hallways. Dove seems to know her way around them. Now that I'm not frantically running through them, I notice how much different the atmosphere of the manor is. Less dirt coats the floors, ceiling lights illuminate the hallways. It almost feels peaceful. Dove stops by a closet in the hallway. She grabs onto the handle of the door and opens it up to reveal shelves and cupboards of miscellaneous tools and supplies. She climbs a stool to reach the highest shelf and retrieves a box with small buckets and brushes. The stool she stands on starts to sway and I tense. She climbs back down without issue, then leads me into a room I recognize. She makes her way to the broken side table I spotted when I was first exploring the rooms of the mansion, and I take the time to look around. A dining table with only 3 chairs takes up most of the room. Candles spike up from the top like stalagmites. There's so many that I think they would render a fire hazard if they were to all be lit. Hardened wax drips over the edge. I can see the end of a fountain pen as well as scraps of paper. I'm unable to see a well of ink from my position, but I assume that is what runs down the dusty tablecloth in dark splotches. A glint catches my attention. On the other side of the room, I'm unsettled by the mirrors that cover the wall from floor to ceiling. I swallow a lump that forms in my throat and do not let my eyes linger on them. I lay on the floor and watch her slather strongly scented glue on the broken leg of the table. She roughly connects the broken leg to the rest of the table and fans it with her hand so it dries faster. She tests its sturdiness with a light finger, then scrunches her nose when it wobbles. She twists around and digs in her box and pulls out a roll of twine with a bright expression on her face. My brows furrow together. Dove twirls the string around the leg and binds it tightly. When she's done, she sets the table straight again. It still rocks unsteadily, but it stays standing. That seems to be good enough for Dove because she picks up the box again and gives a nod. I'll be honest, I have to run to the bathroom, so give me just a little bit. I will be right back. Okay, so she just fixed the table. That seems to be good enough for Dove because she picks up her box and gives it a nod. Ah! I leap from my spot on the floor and spin around to a loud noise. In the corner of the room, a long-haired ghost from earlier stands bent over a broken vase. I flinch when Dove lets out a startled noise and begins to stride towards it. I bark in alarm. It's dangerous! She ignores me. Ziri? I grab the back of her gown with my teeth to stop her. Dove's demeanor goes from angry to taken aback as she stops and looks down at me. I shock myself with my own actions as I quickly drop her skirt. Dove considers me for a moment, then switches her attention back to the ghost and marches over to him. You klutz! My jaw drops. I don't need another person to clean up after. The ghost laces its long fingers together and bows its head. When Dove gets closer to it, she stumbles and cries out. The ghost snaps its head back up to her. Dove checks the bottom of her foot and sees a shard embedded in her flesh. God, I can't read now. Red blooms from the small wound. The ghost makes a groaning sound and steps towards Dove. She hisses when it walks through the mess of glass and drags it with them. It's concerned for her? It worked both times. Oh, there you go. I observe their interaction befuddled. Everything I know about corrupted ghosts is being challenged. I pause to think about how the ghosts rushed to her side earlier. The ghost tugged. Okay! Thank you, Beef! By the way, hi, Beef! How you doing? Table flip was because of Aber twice, and Twitch was like, you can't say the same thing twice within 30 seconds. That's kind of funny. The ghost tugs on Dove's sleeve like it's asking for forgiveness. Oh, hi, Fox. She continues to badger it while digging the shard out of her foot. I study them curiously. It wasn't because they wanted to cause her harm? I trail behind Dove when she leaves to treat the small cut, and when she returns to clean up the... Wait a minute. I trail behind Dove when she leaves to treat the small cut, and when she returns to clean up the mess. We leave the ghost, and Dove continues to do whatever to-do list she has in her mind. While she paints over the scratches on the kitchen door, trying to match the old wallpaper, she speaks to me. Have you met them all of them already? About to drive home, but got you on speaker. Hey, then enjoy this sweet, delicious ASMR, I guess. No, it's not ASMR. We're reading. Doing things. She doesn't speak again until we run into another ghost. It waits in the hallway for Dove. She perks up when she sees what it's holding. Oh, thank you, Babel. Babel? 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 Probably Babel. She takes a small bundle of red roses from it, freshly torn from its bush. I follow her to a window and see a tall, thin glass vase with withered roses sitting in it. Dove takes out the dead flowers and replaces them. Then she pauses and looks down at something below. Her face reveals nothing as she tears her gaze away and makes her way down the hall again. Before following her, I stand on my haunches to try and peer out the window. A chill comes down on me when I look down and see a small patch of graves, each marked by a small wooden cross. I break away from the unnerving sight and turn toward the hall where Dove had gone down. She stands at the end of the hall waiting for me. The bird-like ghost's name is Grell, and the doll-like ghost's name is Odette. Dove introduces them officially when we run into them as we go around the manor doing mundane tasks. It's a sight that I can't get used to. I can't understand how a young girl can act so normal around such monstrous beings. Seeing their translucent leathery skin or the fluids that drip from their decaying flesh is enough to send me reeling. But she does not flinch or fear. Earlier, when they had surrounded her in the kitchen, she could tell they were there, weaving their arms together to wrap her in a ghostly embrace. And she didn't care in the slightest. Surrender's taking forever. I'm sorry, Dunscap. I start to think that she's more disturbing than the ghosts. To become this corrupted, they would have had to stay trapped in this place for a long time. Why are they still here? Their horrific forms border on pitiful. To be this far gone, it has to be some type of hell. Dove walks amongst them like they're her family, though. No, that's not quite it. I reconsider my thoughts. Maybe the image of the graves flashes in my mind. It's because she is theirs. I watch her guide Grell's gangly limbs out of the hallway so they can pass through, like they're nothing but an annoying sibling. A monster, just like them. Maybe this cage she lives in is of her own making. Dove does these errands like a routine, putting books away in a library, cleaning up candles burned to the end on their wick. By the time she finishes winding up a large grandfather clock in the hallway, the manor feels like a completely different place. The air feels less stifled, the rooms are brighter, and it feels like home now. As we walk back to Dove's room, the sun begins to descent into the blazing orange horizon. The evening cicadas make their shrill voices heard. Despite the manor feeling more livable, there is a feeling it gives that I cannot shake, a void that looms like a presence. It's like letters left unfinished or tea half empty and turning cold. There's the sense of stagnation that places this manor outside of time's reach, and it leaves a noise that buzzes persistently in the air. Dove stops abruptly, and I almost trip over my paws, trying not to run into her. I take a peek from behind her and immediately let out a yelp. Hi! The very first ghost I had met stands at the end of the hallway. Dove doesn't move. I see the ghost stagger down the hall towards us, and I instinctively back away. Then Dove speaks. It's okay. I'm not reassured in the slightest. The ghost gets closer, and I can see the details of her leaking entrails. I make a whimpering sound and hide behind Dove, keeping myself close to the wall. She's harmless. She doesn't do anything. I throw a quick glance at Dove when her voice falters. But watch. The ghost is right beside us. Its milky eyes look down at Dove, and she holds its unseeing gaze with cold eyes. I don't breathe. But the sour smell of rot overwhelms my heightened sense of smell. The tension between Dove and the ghost creates a pressure that thins the air, making my lungs ache for oxygen. Pain seizes my chest just when I can no longer hold my breath in. The ghost continues down the hall passively. I exhale loudly. Revis Her is too old for Blender to let me use my GPU. Oh no, Dunscap, I'm sorry. I startle when Dove clenches her fist beside me. Her eyes follow the ghost for a couple of seconds longer, then she cuts off her stare and moves on. I quickly chase after her, not wanting to be alone with this particular ghost again, ever again, if my luck allows it. I look back for a split second, and the ghost has disappeared. Oh, the collar's on the floor now. Dove's shoulders are squared as we return to her room. Since the sun has set in the opposite direction of her window, the scattering of colors from this morning is long gone. Her relationship with the hallway ghost is much different from the others. The way she spoke about her almost seemed resentful. I pad to the corner, stalling for a moment when I see the collar from earlier on the floor. I narrow my eyes at it, pick it up with my teeth, and then throw it at the far wall. I give the collar one last glare, then curl up on the floor. Dove settles cross-legged in the middle of her book towers and reaches for a random text. I let out a big yawn, feeling heavy after the events of the day. I don't know if there's enough time in the world to process everything that's happened to me since I left home. I close my eyes, and I feel the tendrils of sleep curl around me. Do you think people can come back from the dead? She asks it so quietly I almost don't hear. I don't think she expects an answer, and I cannot give her one. Dove's roses. This is much longer than I thought it was going to be. I wince at the bites. Oh, we're from her point of view. The roses are extra hungry today. It's been so long since I've fed them that their petals have bleached white. I watch as my blood saturates the colorless flowers, then narrows my eyes when I spot a parasitic fungi at the base of the bush. Part of the bush is already starting to wither because of it. I reach down and tear the terrible thing out. So this is from her point of view now. And so we're back when she first met the wolf pup. I know more will sprout in this place, but I refuse to leave such a blight near my creation. I walk to a different section of the greenhouse and throw it right next to the corpse of the fungi's latest victim. My heart clenches at the sight. Its eyes are still open. I press my fingers down on the lids of the dead wolf, but it's too late. The terror on its face is already cemented in time. My fingers curl and my nails stab into my palm, making the bites sting. I return to the rosebush and continue to feed them. Thunder and lightning thrash above me. Will it lure another pitiful soul tonight? Slam! I hear the door slam and I flinch, crushing the bulb in my hand. My ears listen intently, searching for lingering traces of his presence. When I find none, I take a deep breath and finally let myself relax. I tear the bulb from its stem and my hands fall to my sides. The sound of the rain is so clear now, I close my eyes and let it wash out everything else. I relish in its violence against the roof of the greenhouse and tremble under the crisp cracks of thunder. To pass the time, now that it is mine again, I whisper something my mother taught me under my breath. Then I hear a whimper come from behind me. Oh, it's a demo! Oh, shit! Okay. I don't know if there is a full version. Sin was asking me questions while I was in the bathroom. If this was a demo or not. Damn! Oh, man, I was, like, very into that. I was a little surprised that it was so long, but visual novels are meant to be long. Matthias, thank you for the biddies. That was really good. Again, longer than I thought it would be. I didn't realize it. Oh, fuck. Now I want to... Shit. That's good. There are other choices that you can make in the game, and some are time-based. You only have a limited amount of time to make your choice. I'd be curious to see if there's anything different about it. I want more. Yeah, no, that was actually really good. I'm not usually huge into visual novels. Under it about halfway. It looks like it'll be better than the first one, at least. Hey, there you go. That's good. But yeah, this is yet another game I highly recommend you guys checking out for yourselves. There's different pathways that you can take, different ways that you can... 10Y? What? 10 yen? Dicentra is another name for bleeding heart flowers. Interesting. I'll have to look that up, actually. But yeah, so please consider checking this out for yourselves. Go to the itch.io page and check that out. You can find the link in Discord under Games for Fox. And thank you, Matthias. But yeah, that was very, very good. And I'm keen to see if maybe I can find the full version of the game at some point, unless all they have thus far is a demo. But yeah, that is Dicentra.